Am I the problem? Is it me and the way that I am showing up? You start strong, but you lose momentum very quickly. You are asking everybody for their opinion before you're making a decision. You can have the perfect funnel, the perfect offer, the perfect brand, the perfect sales process, and you will self-sabotage it. Your business will never be stable if you, as the founder, you as the CEO, you as the operator, yourself are not stable. You are actually the thing that makes your business stable, not your strategy. Every day that you point the strategy's the problem, strategy's the problem, strategy's the problem, is a day that you are ignoring the possible culprit that you are actually the common denominator. It's not about blame, it's actually about opportunity. If you don't have the results that you want in your life or in your business, that you actually have the ability to completely change the outcome and the pathway that you're going to go down. Hello and welcome back to Ambitious. Today we are talking all about self-trust. And that is because I work with scaling entrepreneurs every single day who believe that there's got to be something wrong with their strategy. There has to be something wrong when it comes to their marketing, when it comes to their sales, something when it comes to their offer or team. And it's not to say that when you are struggling to grow, that there's not something there that needs to be audited or adjusted. But I think oftentimes a lot of us miss looking at ourselves in the mirror and asking ourselves that critical question, which is, am I the problem? Is it me and the way that I'm integrating this strategy, or the way that I am showing up with my team, or the way that I am executing this that actually is the reason that it's not working? And so today I want to help you to see the impact and the significance of why your trust within yourself could actually very well be the reason that the strategies or the tactics or the things that you're trying to execute right now are actually not working. So today what I want to do is I want to break down why self-trust is such a crucial skill of the most successful entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about ways to identify that you actually are not someone who trusts yourself within your business. And also, I'm going to be giving you some instructions as to if you want to start to flex this muscle better or more, what are ways that you could start to do that and how you're going to see that muscle show up in the results of your business. So, one of the first things that I want to kind of get clear on is what actually self-trust is. Because I think even, as you may start today and you're listening, you think, I trust myself, right? Like I trust myself in business. I make a decision and I'm like, okay, I believe that that's the right thing to do. I trust myself. But I think a lot of us see it on a very shallow level. And so I literally wanted to outline what are some of the ways that you can audit yourself to say, do I really on a deep level trust myself? So self-trust is the ability to believe your own decisions. So if you've ever had one of those moments where you make a decision and you go, oh shoot, like I hope that this is right, or I hope that that was the right thing to do. The second piece is the ability to follow through with what you say you're going to do or what you say you will do. Because one of the things that we know is that when you say you're going to do something and you don't follow through on it, or you don't actually complete it, it actually further gives you evidence that you can't trust yourself, because it really is the cognitive dissonance between what you think you are versus what you actually are, or what you think you're going to do versus what you actually do. And so that on a deep level actually does create an inner conflict within us as leaders. Also, the ability to hold discomfort. This is so important, to hold discomfort in moments of growth without abandoning yourself. I want to make this one really clear. The ability to hold discomfort of growth without self-abandonment. One of the things that we see all the time is that there are people who can grow and scale their businesses, but it's often at what cost? Are you sacrificing yourself in the process of growth? And when you're growing, what does your time with yourself and your own experience feel like and look like in those really tough seasons? Do you abandon yourself in those intense seasons of momentum, those intense seasons of scaling? And it also is the ability to stay in leadership even when results are not immediate. One of the things a lot of people struggle with is, especially if you have team members, you may feel like, when you're in these tough seasons, you're like, everybody's looking to me for an answer. Everybody's looking to me to, know what to do next or to know how to solve this problem. And one of the things that we know of leaders who have a lot of self-trust is, number one, they can acknowledge that they are in a season of discomfort or that they are in a season of uncertainty. Leadership, trusting yourself is not saying or denying or ignoring the reality of the environment that you're in. It's saying, hey, I trust myself enough to acknowledge the difficult circumstance that we're in, to voice that to the people around me, and to trust myself that I'm going to find a way out of it. And so with this, I want to be clear that self-trust is not about, confidence. It's not about the fact that you're perfect. It's not even the fact that you always have all of the answers. It's actually that you trust yourself to figure it out. And the way that I think about this on a very, very simple level, if I think about defining self-trust, is if your back is against the wall and everyone is looking to you to have a solution to save the day, how much do you trust yourself to solve and work that problem? And this is, again, not to say that you're not going to be messy. It's not to say that you have, full confidence the entire way along. I even myself would say I have very high self-trust, but I have moments where I'm low confidence, meaning, I trust myself to navigate it, but it's not like I'm feeling above the world and that I, need no support and everything's amazing. What I know more than anything is that I don't have to always be motivated. I don't have to always be perfect. I don't even always have to know and have the utmost confidence that I'm going to save the day, but I trust myself to figure it out. I trust myself to navigate problems. I trust myself to process the emotion. I trust myself that I am somebody who, regardless of what is put in front of me, I will find a way. And so self-trust and that muscle is something that is really important for you to ask yourself if you have. Because a lot of us think we do, but then we start to audit and we ask ourselves, okay, whoa, maybe I don't have self-trust. So I want to kind of give you some things that you can look at to say, okay, do I really have that muscle? Is that a skill that I have? I'm going to break these into sections and I wanted to organize them because I think that there are like ways that this will show up in the different departments of your business or the different kind of, I guess I should say, skills or themes of your business. One is in decision making. This is a really easy indicator for a lot of people. So first is you are asking everybody for their opinion before you're making a decision. I even see this with people who are not working with me. They'll say, oh, I have to talk to my business coach to see what they say and get their opinion. I'm like, your business coach is not the person who's running your business. Your business coach is just that, a coach. They're a consultant, just as I am for my clients. I don't tell my clients, ignore all your intuition, don't trust yourself, ditch your own thought processes and decisions and do what I say. It's about me as a coach saying, here's my advisement, here's my information, and your job is to have discernment and to have interpretation of that information to say what feels right about that for me. So when I see people who need to make a decision in their business and they need to talk to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people before making the decision, that tells me they don't trust themselves. It's not about them getting consult. They're looking for validation. They're looking for someone else basically to tell them what it is that they need to do. The other one is that they delay decisions until the opportunity has come and gone. So it's like, yeah, I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I'm planning on it. Yeah, I have been, sitting with that. And then before you know it, the moment, the opportunity has come and it has left. And because you took so long to make a decision, basically nothing happened at all. Also, changing directions constantly. This one's very easy to audit because you probably will say, something along the lines of, I want to have a big team. No, I'm actually, I'm deciding that I only want a small team. Or I want to go high ticket. And then next thing you know, you're creating a passive offer. Or you feel like you're like, okay, yes, I want to launch this thing and do this thing. But then you're switching to the total other side of the spectrum, basically overnight. This is not to say that you can't make strategy changes in the moment where it makes sense. But it's to say that if your vision is changing so rapidly, so constantly for yourself and for your business, it's that you don't really trust the initial vision that you had, which is why you're searching for more. And ultimately, you need reassurance before you move. And this, like, we often talk about success loves speed, right? So the fact that if you have this intuition, if you have this idea, that it's not about you sitting with it, processing it, ruminating on it. It's about saying 3, 2, 1, go. I have to have as short of a span between the idea that I have and the execution of that, or the idea that I have and the killing of that idea, because it's not going to make sense for me. When you are constantly needing validation, what you're doing is you're really stretching out this process of how long it takes you to gather information to make a decision. And that's the thing that's capping your scaling. It's that you're asking 15 people before you decide. You're going back and forth between the different ideas that you have. You need reassurance from everybody before you take action. And you need to feel 100% certain before you move. So this is where self-trust, again, ties into scaling. Is that if you don't trust yourself, you're losing tons of time and tons of opportunity in those moments. Now, this also shows up when people are executing. So one of the pieces that I noted is that you start strong, but you lose momentum very quickly. So like you trust yourself when you start, you're excited, you've got the dopamine, you're like, yes, okay, we're crushing, like this is the new idea. I'm so pumped and jazzed about it. Then you get into the weeds, and because you're not in the dopamine center, because you're not having these like boosts of excitement, you kind of end up in just what I consider to be like the boring part of execution, which is that it isn't exciting and that it's not, liberating every 5 seconds, but you trust yourself to see it through. If someone doesn't trust themselves, they'll have this idea, they'll have this dopamine hit of this big exciting thing, and then you lose momentum and you go, oh, this is not as exciting anymore, I'm moving on. And so it's this constant kind of chase of that dopamine because you don't trust yourself to see it through. Also, which again is a really clear indicator, you are procrastinating on those high ROI tasks. And this is something that is actually quite a deep one, which honestly would like need its own, 15, 20 minutes to dive into. But when someone knows what they need to do and you know what you need to do right now in your business and you're not doing it, there is actually a deep level of lack of trust for yourself, of trust of what it takes to get there. So not being interested in doing the hard work and delaying or procrastinating what you know it's going to take for you to see momentum, or also not trusting yourself to receive what is going to be coming to you. So when we execute on something that we have a, goal or a focus is going to generate a certain result for us, sometimes we're so resistant as to who we would need to become if that actually occurred. And we are so resistant to what we would need to do in ourselves and how we would need to step up that we actually push it away. So I saw this with someone recently because they did a launch and they were excited about it. They were like, okay, like 3, 2, 1, go. I can't wait to launch this. I can't wait to do it. And then they go into launching it. And before you know it, they kind of start to step back and they start to push back and not be marketing anymore and not really selling and not really doing the actions that it would take for them to launch this offer. And so I'm watching this from the sidelines and I'm thinking, this is really interesting. And they were so excited. Why are they now not doing the things that they fully know would generate this being successful? Well, it's because this person had never been that type of entrepreneur before. They were launching a new chain to their business. That meant they had to operate in a new way. They had to serve people in a new way. They had to market in a new way. They had to sell in a new way. Like it required a lot of new of them. So while the concept and the idea was exciting to them, they didn't really feel excited about getting people enrolled into this new side of their business or into this new offer, because there was like, oh my God, if I do that, then they're in. And if they're in, then I have to serve them. And if I have to serve them, this is what's required of me. So unintentionally, this is not a conscious thing, it's unconscious. This person started to back away. They started to back away from the things that was going to be required of them. They started to back away from the hard work. They backed away also, which is a big indicator, from difficult conversations. This is another thing that I saw with them, is that they were avoiding the hard conversations that were needed, and they were avoiding doing the hard work, frankly. And that's because those were going to connect to needing to step into a higher level version of themselves, and they weren't ready to consciously do that. When you're somebody who avoids the hard thing, It could be a hard conversation with a team member. It could be a hard conversation even with a client. And in this instance, it was, truthfully, I could notice, and I called her out on it. I said, "You're avoiding me in this experience because you know for a fact what I'm going to tell you." And so she's like, "Honestly, yeah, I was avoiding texting you. I was avoiding talking to you about it because I knew the advice that you were going to give me. And I just felt so like I wasn't ready. I set this big vision, I set this big goal, and then I realized I wasn't following through. And frankly, I was like embarrassed." So there's times where people really avoid because they recognize that in achieving the thing that you say that you want, you're going to have a different level of you that shows up. You're going to have to operate differently, make decisions differently. You're going to start opening a door that once it's open cannot be closed. And so it makes sense that you have resistance, but the thing that's going to help you to overcome that is you have to trust yourself to navigate it. This is where all this comes back to. The other thing that we see is people who overcomplicate what are actually simple things. This is something that a lot of people don't catch. And this is why, mindset work, I think, gets a bad rap. People think about mindset work as like manifestation, and they think about it as, sitting in the corner, meditating. It's not that. Mindset work shows up in our business so blatantly obvious, but we can't see it because we're inside of it. And so I see this when someone needs to do something that I know for a fact is very simple to achieve, and they will overcomplicate it. And so they'll say, let's say we're doing a launch. I'm like, great, you have to do A, B, C, get these 3 things done, and then we're great. We're good to press go. Okay, well, what about the subject line? And what about this call to action? And what about this copy structure? And what about this post? And what about the timing of this? And what about, and I said, hey, pause. You're getting into the weeds because by you being in the weeds and being distracted and getting into all these little nuanced pieces, it's a easy, socially acceptable way for you to postpone your launch. And that is because you don't trust yourself to launch this. You don't trust yourself to execute it. You don't trust yourself to be able to handle it if it doesn't get the specific target that you're looking for. You don't trust yourself to see it through in whatever form that takes. And so instead, you're hiding in the weeds, calling it, strategy, calling it execution, calling it, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, when you and I both know that you are way postponing this and way overcomplicating it because you just don't trust yourself to do it. And it's a hard conversation because we have to realize we're the block, right? So as I said to the beginning, there's times when the thing that you're doing strategically is not actually the issue. Your execution of that, your self-trust in the execution of that strategy is actually the thing that will allow it to shine. The other thing that we see this in is also leadership. So you are outsourcing a lot of decision-making to people. You're outsourcing responsibility, and you don't trust yourself to make the decision. So this is where, someone needs to make a decision as a CEO, and it's like, oh, I'm going to ask my marketing person, like, what she wants to do. I'm going to ask my operations person what she wants to do. And I'm just going to take a little segue here. This is actually what I taught to one of my clients. There's 3 levels of decisions within a team, within a business. Number 1 level of decision-making is that you are consulting nobody around you and you're making the ultimate decision as the CEO. So that's level 1. Level 2 is that you are going to consult your team, right? You're going to have a discussion, but you're ultimately going to make the decision, which means that you're going to have a discussion, but you have the final say. Third is that you're going to have a discussion with your team, and that as a collective, you're all going to come to an agreement before making the decision. So those are 3 hierarchies of decision-making as a leader. Do it on your own, but with consult of your team, or do it completely 100% as a team. So we need to understand that when we go into decision-making, if we're like just delegating decisions all the time to other people because we don't trust ourselves to be the one who puts the stamp of like, this is what we're doing, that's actually because we don't trust ourselves to be the one connected to the decision. And also because we don't trust ourselves to be the person who's responsible for the outcome of that. What you're really doing when you're delegating decision-making ongoing and all the time, whether it's to a coach, a team member, a peer, a friend, whatever it might be, what you're really doing when you're constantly getting consult from other people and trying to get them to make the decision for you is you're basically saying to yourself, if I consult all these people and I get all their information and they tell me what to do, and then I just take the decision based off what they told me, when everything goes well, okay, great, I'm still involved. And when everything doesn't go well, I don't have to take responsibility for it because it's what so and so told me to do. So again, it really comes back to self-trust. This is another one for all of you leaders. This is with clients or with team. You do not invite feedback. The amount of times that someone will say to me that they know a client is upset, but they're like, oh, I don't want to have to like get on a call with them. Or they know a team member, is going to have some feedback for them, but they're like, oh, I don't want to have this hard conversation. You will avoid feedback if you don't trust yourself to receive it. And so self-trust is the ability to go into the lion's den, if you will, of an experience and trust yourself to navigate that feedback and trust yourself to know what to do next, how to receive it, how to process it. You have to trust yourself to be in that environment. And so when someone doesn't trust themselves, they will typically avoid feedback. They will avoid the difficult conversation, which in turn means that you're actually not getting crucial information that could help you to grow and scale your business. So this is, again, they all connect, they all domino into stalling your ability to scale. The other thing that I would also say is more on an emotional level is that you always feel behind and you feel like you're doing it, quote unquote, wrong. And I will say this was for me the biggest indicator that I did trust myself is that I am somebody who never, I wouldn't say ever in my entire career feels behind. And that's because I recognize that like all of us have our own pace. All of us have the different strategies that we're executing. All of us have different vision, different goals. And I trust in my execution and how I show up each day, what it is that I execute, the steps that I take, the work that I'm focusing on today. I trust that. So because of that, I trust the outcomes that those deliver. If I trust the way that I show up, I trust the results that produce. If you don't trust your vision, if you don't trust your strategy, and therefore if you don't trust that you're going to be consistent, you will always feel behind. You will never trust what it is that you're doing. And you will also feel, probably 9 times out of 10, a lot of comparison. People are going faster than me. Other people are getting results quicker than me. That person feels like they have it easier than me. And you start to really question yourself, like, am I enough? Am I doing it wrong? Is this right? What am I not getting that these other people seem to understand? And so when you compare yourself to other people, it's really because you don't trust yourself. So we see comparison as this invitation for us to realize that comparison is not about the person that you're consuming. So if there's someone on the internet that you consume that you've needed to mute or that you've needed to block even, or you're like, I'm unfollowing them, what I recognize in those moments is like, yeah, sure. Like if someone is impacting your inner peace, there's no need for you to be around that. But if this is something that you find ongoing is something that quote unquote triggers you, meaning that you kind of feel a little bit of comparison with a lot of people, or you feel a little bit triggered by a lot of people online, that you're behind, that you're not doing enough, they make you feel like you're not enough. That's not them. That's you. That's you not having trust in yourself and that you don't feel whole, which is why when you go consume, it takes pieces of you. You haven't completed and protected yourself. So because of that, when you go, it literally sucks all your energy. But that also is because you're allowing it to do so, because you're not complete before you go out and consume that. So whenever someone says that they are, having a lot of comparison, or they feel behind, or they're struggling to see so-and-so on the internet doing XYZ, there is this aspect of that's an invitation for reflection for us. But if that's something that ongoing impacts you, I want you to ask yourself, what would it look like if you trusted your own timing? What would it look like if you trusted your way and your approach and your strategy? What would it look like if you trusted your journey and your results? What would it look like if you trusted yourself? And I think it's just something that a lot of people don't do. Now, obviously we see this tie between this lack of self-trust and strategy. There's ways of, delayed decision-making, spending time on things, delegating decisions to your team. Like it can seep into, like a spider web, all of these elements of your business. But ultimately, you can have the perfect funnel, the perfect offer, the perfect brand, the perfect sales process, and you will self sabotage it. That's what it comes down to. How we see self trust show up within a strategy is that you will actually, through delayed decision making and not, being able to have the delayed gratification of putting in the work without an instant result, you will abandon the plan, as we said, and you'll not want to do it because it's not as sexy and exciting anymore. And now that it's getting a little bit neutral and not as exciting, you don't trust yourself to navigate that season. There will be all these things that will start to show, and as a result, your strategy could have been top notch. But because you could not see it through, you're not ever going to see the benefit or the outcome or the result that was possible from that strategy. And so then what ends up happening is you're wondering why your business doesn't feel safe. You're asking yourself, okay, well, if I want to feel like the strategy is working for me, I want to feel like the strategy is giving me what I need, then, if it's not working, the strategy must be broken. But let's go back to that example of the launch. If somebody is doing a launch and they're not doing the things and showing up in the way that they would need to get the results, if they are delaying, decisions that need to be made for that launch that would help it to pivot to get the best result, if they are somebody who's getting into the weeds of their email sequences and content because they believe by doing that's going to be the thing that allows this launch to blow up, you can see all these little pieces, these little tiny adjustments that are rooted in lack of self-trust are actually compounding to put brakes in the launch. So then what ends up happening is your launch doesn't go to plan. You don't get the outcome that you want. You don't see the results that you're looking for. And you go, oh, this stupid launch strategy didn't work. Whenever someone, like for the example of launching, when someone launches and they don't see the result that they're looking for, or they don't see the outcome that they had anticipated that they believe should have happened, the first thing that I do is I look at their role in the launch. Because truthfully, yes, if you went into a launch and you had no strategy, there's a high possibility that the thing that you're doing didn't work because there was no strategy. But there's also a possibility that you had a great strategy, but you, the person who was operating behind it, didn't do what was needed to allow it to be successful. Like there's people who launch who will get inquiries and then they will feel overwhelmed by the inquiries and they never answer the messages. Like, do you know how many people I've talked to? And it's very common, who will have, applications coming in that they don't follow up with. They have DMs coming in that they don't follow up with. And that's because it's a mindset thing. It's not a strategy thing. Because you're thinking, well, why would someone who wants to make sales have these inquiries to work with them and not answer those? That makes literally no sense. But it does make sense, because if they enroll all these people, they have to serve them. And if they have to serve them, a different person is going to be required to show up and to serve all those clients than maybe the person they feel that they are right now. So in an act of avoidance, they avoid the conversation, they avoid posting on social, they avoid sending that email, because they know that if I execute this, it could generate clients for me. And if it generates clients for me, I may have to serve those clients. And if I serve those clients, that's going to require XYZ of me. And I'm not ready to do that. So instead, they go back to the front and they just sabotage it by not putting things up, by not answering messages, by not sending the email. And so strategy is something that becomes successful because of the person who's operating it. So one of the things that is important for you to know is that your business will never be stable if you as the founder, you as the CEO, you as the operator, yourself are not stable. You are actually the thing that makes your business stable, not your strategy. Because strategies are going to come and go. Strategies and things that you're executing in marketing, or things you're executing in your, sales process or your offer, those are going to come and go. Those are going to be things that, in this season you're doing this, and this season you're doing that. The through line is you. You are the through line of your business. So if your business does not feel stable, it is because you as the CEO are not the rock of stability from which it's connected. So I don't want you to feel like those people who you watch, who feel like they just have like so much ease, everything's so stable, everything's so predictable, everything's so consistent. It's not that they don't have problems. It's not that they don't have things that come up or things that they're navigating. The difference is that they trust themselves no matter the fire, no matter what they experience, no matter what comes up, to handle it. We talk a lot about with scaling that it's not the absence of problems in scaling, it's the perspective around those problems. So this is where the trust comes in, because the perspective shift is you trust yourself to navigate it. There are people, I want you to think of like as an analogy, you're in the water and you're surfing and you see a really, really big wave and you're like, whoa, this is much bigger of a wave than I'm used to, okay? So you see this and you see the wave and it's much bigger than you're used to. But there's the person A who sees the big wave while surfing and goes, never mind, I'm going back to shore. Screw this, I'm out of here. And then there's the person who goes, okay, I've seen a wave like this before. I know what to do. You breathe. You realize that if I try to go under, I could get squashed by the wave if I don't catch it right. And if that happens, I have experienced that before. But I also could go under and end up on the other side of the wave and it crashes behind me and I don't get impacted at all. So they weigh out that in the event I get crushed, I'll be fine and I'll handle that. And in the event that I get through, I know how to handle that. And they still 3, 2, 1, go, they go under the wave. Self-trust is the ability in those moments, those critical little moments, and they happen a million times a day. They happen every day for you. They happen every week, every month. That's the difference of the person who's still out there surfing versus you who could be in certain moments or certain seasons of your business. You're sitting on shore watching those people surf and you go, oh, I struggle with comparison. They're further ahead than me. They trusted themselves to get under the wave. They trusted themselves that even in the event that the wave crushed them, they would take a couple breaths and they'd start paddling back out. Those who don't trust themselves go back to shore and then sit there frustrated watching everybody surf the way that they wish they could. But the difference is you don't have different tools. You both have a surfboard. You've both got arms to go and paddle out there. The difference is that they were okay to get crushed. They trusted themselves and they were okay to risk getting crushed to be able to have the possibility of success. The difference is they didn't stop paddling and they didn't go back to shore. They stayed out in the water. So your self-trust is not a matter of resources. Your strategy is the equivalent of that surfboard. You both have surfboards. You've both got strategies. You both have business things that you can execute, but the person on the board is just as important as the waves, and it's just as important as the board itself. And so what I see 9 times out of 10 is that people will blame the board. They're like, oh, the stupid board is the reason that we're not, this stupid strategy is the reason that I'm not growing or scaling. This, the water, which is like the environment of the market, or my clients, or the people in my DMs, they're the problem. Like it's this constant finger pointing, somebody else, something else, this thing is the reason that I'm not growing. And instead, I want you to ask yourself, in the last 6 months to 12 months, how many times have you paddled back to shore? How many times have you seen a wave and thought, ooh, that's stretchy for me, turn around? How many times have you trusted yourself to get crushed by a wave? And how many times have you trusted yourself that you could get crushed by a wave and you've ended up on the other side and now the wave's behind you and you're still out in this beautiful, serene water? It doesn't take a lot for us to realize where we're sabotaging ourselves. We just have to have a really honest conversation. And for me, even, I still have this. I'm not telling you this from my high horse up here that I don't have this myself. I, for example, trust myself a lot in business. I would not say, though, in the contrast, that I trust myself a lot when it comes to personal buckets for me. So one of the places that I sabotage a lot is with my health. Like, I know what's required of me. I fully understand what I need to do. I have an understanding of the strategy, going to the gym, getting my steps, what I need to eat, all of that. But I also recognize that, for me, I had to have this conversation with myself, which I know sounds silly, but I had to have this conversation with myself, which was like, Kate, you know what to do. You know how to eat. You know what to do for your workouts. You know how to get your steps in. You know what to do with your sleep. You know how to regulate your emotions and therefore regulate your hormones. Like, you know what to do. The reason that I was not doing it is because I recognize that in stepping back into being fit the way that I used to be fit, it meant that I was going to show up as a different person. And I, at the time, wasn't really sure that I was ready to be that person. I didn't trust myself to live that lifestyle. I didn't trust myself to be her again. So I self-sabotage. I would be really, really consistent, and then I would just stop. I would start to see results, and I'd have one day where I felt like I wasn't seeing the momentum that I wanted, and I'd be like, oh, see, this doesn't work. And I would find evidence to prove what I wanted to be true, which was that I wasn't going to see progress and it wasn't going to happen for me. And instead, what I had to realize is that the way this analogy came up is that I thought of this when I was journaling. I said, girl, you're literally making progress out in the water and then you're stopping paddling. No shit, you're not making progress. No wonder you're not getting where you want to go. As soon as you get close, you go back to shore. So I had to identify, what are those moments that make me want to turn around on my surfboard? What are those moments that make me go, I don't want to do this, and you go back? And so once I identified those moments that make me want to succumb to the old me, make me want to go back to old patterns, those became the things that I became hyper aware of. And I'm like, ooh, this is the moment. This is my wave. This is my wave. Right? And so I started to identify those big waves in my life, those big waves in my health, those big waves in even my relationship. I want this beautiful relationship and I want it to be deep and thoughtful and activating and all these things. And I realized that oftentimes for me, when things get a little bit uncertain or when I don't have a plan, I pull away. And I'm like, I don't have a plan. I don't have steps. I don't know how it's going to work out. And I get scared and I want to go back to shore. I'm like, never mind. I'd rather, have the certainty that I'm on stable ground on shore than have the uncertainty of being out here in the water, even though all I want is to be in the water on my board. So I deal with this too, not in business, but I deal with this in my personal life. I deal with this in my health. And so what I had to do is ask myself, what are my big waves? And I started to look at those as the area that I had to acknowledge and become aware of so I could actively look to overcome them. So for you, I want you to look at and listen to, what is self-trust in business? What does this actually look like? If I do trust myself, this is what your reality will be. Number one, you will move fast. Okay. So even for me, the moment that I will tell you, I built the most confidence when I left my last relationship of 8 years, because it was stretchy for me, of course. But there was a part that was also me recognizing, like, I trust myself so much in this moment. Like, I just had this intuition, this knowing. And when I did do that, the level of self-trust that I had to be like, girl, you can navigate anything. Like, you're good. You have you. That was a very fast process, that relationship ending. But it made me realize the reason it was fast is because I didn't have doubt. I didn't teeter-totter of like, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this right? Is this wrong? I just knew, and I acted on my knowing. So when you trust yourself, you will move fast. You will also fail and you will not spiral, because you recognize that your failure is just an indicator of opportunity for refinement. It doesn't mean anything about you, and that it's evidence that you can't trust you. You also will course correct, and you have no shame. I will tell you, and even my team knows this in business, there's many times I'm like, hey, we're going to do a masterclass. Never mind, nix, we're doing this. Like, I, for the times previous to that, felt like I had to see every idea that I had and every plan that I had through, because if I didn't, it meant I wasn't consistent, or, it meant that I was changing my mind too much. I trust myself to course correct. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm all over the map, but it means that if I take in evidence and information around me that tells me that I'm on the wrong course, I will then say, okay, great, we're switching, we're course correcting, we're going this way, and we'll make a pivot. We're not throwing everything out and starting over. We are pivoting. We pivot a timeline, we pivot a date, we pivot something along the way that allows us to be more in alignment with the path that we want to be on. You are also making decisions off of data and intuition, not from a place of fear. So like, for example, in a launch, you're not canceling a launch because you're scared it's not going to get people, or I'm not going to see the client sign that I want to. You are somebody who acknowledges that the data is telling us this, and my intuition tells me that this is the right next step. You trust yourself, and you also validate that oftentimes with data, not just with emotion. So like you are making logical, thought-based decisions, not always just I feel this, so go. I feel this, so go. You also stay consistent enough for things to produce results. Okay, so even to mine, the area that I struggle is health. I recognize that I was so specifically connected to the outcome and the result that I wasn't focused enough on the consistency. So my only metric now of success is just how consistent I am with my steps and with my workouts. Nothing else matters. I don't care what the scale says. I don't care what my body looks like. I don't care what my strength is or what, how much I'm lifting here. I'm just caring about my reps. How many reps am I putting in each week in my steps? How many reps am I putting in each week in my workouts? And I measure my consistency because I recognize that my consistency is what ultimately is going to compound to give me the results I want anyways. You do not panic when numbers dip. If your marketing is dipping, if your sales are dipping, you do not panic. You keep your focus on the things that are going to move the needle regardless of the external circumstances or the stimuli around you. If your team says, okay, well, what are we going to do about this? I'm freaking out about this. I'm freaking out about this. You are the rock. You're the grounding force that says, guys, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. And it's not to say, I want to be clear, that you are not allowed to have emotions. It's not to say that you're not allowed to be upset, that you're not allowed to be anxious, that you're not allowed to worry. You're allowed to process your emotions. But the difference is that you trust yourself to navigate it. I have been in boiling water type of feeling in my business before. And I have my emotions. Don't get me wrong. I've cried. I've been frustrated. I've been angry. I've had all these moments. But I have had at the end of that, like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And then from that moment onward, it's like, okay, go. Because I trust myself. I process. I allow myself to release. But right after that, it's like, you need to be the rock here. You got to have a plan. You got to solve it. So go do. And then I get into problem solving mode. And that's because I trust myself to figure it out. Even if I have emotions, I honor those, but I make a plan. You also keep your word to yourself. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. You set boundaries, you delegate, and you hold people accountable. You trust yourself to be the rock, and you also ask that trust of other people, that they also keep to their word, that they also are consistent, that they also do the things that they say they're going to do. So not only do you embody this, but you ask that embodiment of those people around you. You also do not oftentimes, when you trust yourself, feel in chaos. This is something that's an important distinction. Things around you can feel chaotic. You're not chaotic. So like, I don't know if you've ever had those moments where like your business feels like a tornado and you're like, whoa, this is a lot going on right now. And that's true. You might be right. There is potentially a lot going on in your business, but you have to trust yourself that you're not chaotic, you're stable, you're calm, even though everything else is not calm. And I think about this literally like a mom, and all the moms I feel like no, it's like you're home and your house is a disaster and there's dishes everywhere and whatever, and your kid is having a meltdown. It's like you have to take a breath and be like, listen, this entire environment right now is chaos, but I have to be a grounding energy, because otherwise if I'm frantic, they're frantic. So there is this transfer of that. The same thing is true within your business. You have to be able, in the middle of a tornado, to stay calm. I think about it like a paramedic. You cannot be, when someone's got an arm hanging off, to be someone who goes, oh my God, it starts freaking out. You have to be the person that can be in an emergency room and be calm, be the paramedic and be calm, be around the tornado and be calm. You trust yourself to navigate it. You regulate and you trust yourself to acknowledge that while my environment feels extremely chaotic right now, I don't want to be sucked into that chaos. I don't want to be in the bucket of feeling chaotic myself as well. Most importantly, you notice fear, but you do not let it lead you. Okay? You notice fear, but you don't let it lead you. I think there's a misconception with business owners that people who are like very successful don't feel fear. I will tell you, I'm scared of things every day. I'm scared of things every day. Fear is normal. Fear is common. Fear is normal. The thing with fear is what fear does to your function. That's how I think about it. When you're scared, what do you do next? And that's something that I'm going to leave there for you, because I think that even in itself is a simple enough question for you to think on. So, like, when you're scared, what do you do? When you feel nervous, something's not going to work out, or you're worried about the result, or you're worried what it would require of you, or you worry how you'd have to show up. Like, when you are like, oh, this makes me anxious, this makes me a little bit nervous, what do you do next? Do you avoid? Do you retreat? Do you regulate and push through? What do you do as your next step? That's an important thing for you to know, because people who are the most successful in business do not experience fear. It is a massive misconception that just because you are someone who's successful, you don't feel scared. You will feel terrified in a successful business many times. It's not that that's not there. It's not that you'll never feel it. It's about how you navigate it. And so people that are deep in self-trust, they feel the fear, but they act anyways. So I want you to just ask yourself, in the last 3 to 5 times that you felt really scared in business, what have you done? What's your response been? And that's even in itself a great reflection for you to sit with. One of the things that is important as well is for us to acknowledge, where does this lack of self-trust come from? Because why do I feel this way? Why am I struggling with this? And for all of us, there's many different reasons that this can come up. And I wanted to note down some of the most common ones. Number one is past experiences from childhood where you were not taught to trust yourself. Like, even for me, there was times when I was a kid that I was not invited to trust my intuition. I wasn't invited to trust my own thoughts or my own feelings. I was taught to trust someone else knows better for me. So I had to rewire that, which is to say, well, no, what do I want to do? It's even something I'm navigating today in therapy, is like, I was always told that this person's plan is the way that I'm supposed to go, or this person and what I was told is the right way. But what do I want to do? And that's something that I'm still navigating in my personal life. But I recognize it comes from my upbringing. It comes from my childhood. It also can come from previous failures that created self-doubt. So sometimes people will tell me, well, Kate, I don't trust myself because I feel like I have reason to not trust myself. Last time I did, I got burned. So what we do is we create these stories that because there's been a time that we tried to trust and we got burned, that means I can't trust again. And I tell people it's like, being in a relationship where a guy or a woman does you dirty in a way, you know what I mean? Like, kind of does something that breaks your trust or breaks your bond. And you're like, well, last time I opened myself up, this is what happened to me. It's like, yes, but are you going to allow a circumstance, a situation to be the reason that moving forward you don't trust again? Like, you're just going to close yourself off permanently because of that? You're using this one instance or situation as your evidence ongoing that you can't trust yourself? So I think that that's something that I've recognized, is like, you have to be careful what stories you attach to what experiences. Because if you want to find evidence to not trust yourself, you will find it. If you also, in the contrast, want to find evidence that you navigated something and you did trust yourself to overcome it, you will also find that. So for me, when I left my engagement, I could say, I didn't trust myself the whole way through. I didn't trust the feelings I had. I didn't trust the thought I had of this. I didn't trust this experience. I didn't trust when I found out X and doing something about it. I could find all that. Or I could also find that, I had a knowing and I had a feeling, a pull, a nudge, and I trusted myself to act on it. You'll find the evidence you're looking for. So in past experiences, be very careful what it is that you're looking to find from that experience or from that story. Also, being in a program or coaching that told you to just follow the steps. This is a notorious one in business, especially from people who've gotten business coaching, is like, if your coach ever told you to, this is the right way, this is the way to do it, this is, the steps to follow, ignore your intuition, ignore your thoughts, ignore your feelings, ignore that question you have coming up, follow the steps, follow the steps, follow the steps. That, to put it transparently, is literally just that coach telling you, ignore yourself, ignore yourself, ignore yourself, ignore yourself, right? And that's something that over time will erode your self-trust if you allow it to. I've had people say to me, well, my coach told me to do this. I said, great. Your coach is not the decision-making person in your business. Like, so what? Your coach gave you information. Because your coach says this is something that I recommend that works, doesn't mean that you just ignore all of your inner decision making and critical thinking skills to be like, well, I guess that's what I do. Like, that's not the point of coaching. And anyone who says it's my way or the highway is somebody from a coaching perspective. I'm going to be really direct with you. You should run for the hills if someone says this is the only way, whatever that thing is. This is the way you market. This is the way you sell. These are the offers to have. This is the thing you do. If they are not open to helping you to discover yourself, run. Because that means that they are ultimately requiring you to abandon yourself to insert their programming as your new level of trust. And then you wonder why you don't trust yourself in business. It's because you've been taught and you allowed yourself to absorb a strategy that the only way the strategy worked is if you abandon everything about you in the process of integrating it. So trusting yourself is also ensuring that you're not taking somebody else's advisement as to this is the only way. And you also are not going to, with this, an important root of why this comes up is not allowing comparison and online pressure to tell you that you're supposed to be farther along. This is the one that I see kills people, is that you're allowing your lack of self-trust could come from a coach telling you there's one way, or your lack of self-trust is coming from the fact that you're allowing other people to tell you whether you should trust yourself. Think about that. You're consuming people online who tell you this is the way, or this is what success looks like, or this is the speed you're supposed to grow at. Says who? Like, literally says who? Literally says who? So when you see that people are like, I made 100K in 2 days, or I made 100K in 30 days, or 100K in 6 months, or $1 million in whatever. Okay, fine. That's just information. It's just evidence. It doesn't mean anything about you. But lack of trust in yourself can come from the fact that you're letting other people tell you the conditions upon which you can trust yourself. So you need to be very, very careful about it. So I tell people, be very careful who you consume, be very careful how much you consume. And that's because you can't let other people tell you whether you should allow yourself to feel okay. You can only trust yourself if you're getting these results. You can only trust that you're making good progress if you've hit this number in this time. It's all just noise. So I ask people, if you removed the internet, how would you know that you can trust yourself in business? If I removed all the indicators of what online business told you is successful, how would you tell me that you're successful? And most people realize that, you know what? It's like being home with their kids, or it's, doing X or doing Y. It's not about this X amount of money in X amount of months, because they realize that's actually not what I define as success. So with this, I want to give you some things to think about. Number one, some reps you can think about putting in to help you to trust yourself more is set some small goals for yourself and set some small promises and keep them. Keep them. Build the trust. Trust can be rooted in evidence. You can build evidence that you don't have it, and you can also build evidence that you do have it. So look to set commitments and keep those. Like I was saying with my, health journey, my new thing has just been the small commitments of going to the gym and steps, not focusing so much on result. Decide faster. Give yourself a decision and start to put in the reps of, how do I make this decision quicker? How do I not take something and have to sit on it and ruminate on it and process it for a week? And instead, how do I make this decision much faster, within an hour, within 24 hours, within a week versus a month, a quarter, or 6 months? Audit your decision-making rules. So like for me, I always try to consider that the level of the depth of the decision should be contextual to the time it takes me to decide. So like if I am trying to decide, okay, should we go, light beige or dark beige? Like 2 seconds, make a decision, right? If I'm trying to decide, do I want to start this new business that I'm starting? I ruminated on that. I thought about it a little bit, because it's not a small decision. It's a big task. It's investment. It's people. It's all of it. So the context of your decision-making should be relative to the level or the impact of the decision that's at hand. So trying to be conscious of, set some decision-making guidelines for yourself to give yourself some bumper lanes, so you're not spending 6 months to decide on branding for something. Reduce decision load as well. Like be conscious of how much pressure you're under to make decisions, how much, stimuli you have from a to-do list each day to, choices you have to make, these constant pressures around you. And I would say of all of this, the most important thing that you can do for self-trust is build evidence that helps you instead of hinders you. I even think one of the ways you could build self-trust right now is literally just outline what are the areas that in the last 3 to 6 months have made you feel like maybe you can't trust yourself, or maybe you've struggled to trust yourself. So that could be step one. Step two, then say, what was the invitation, or how could I reframe that to see how I actually did trust myself in that? Right? So as I said, even for me, I found a lot of evidence that I didn't trust myself initially with that relationship. And then I realized, Kate, it's actually the biggest embodiment of self-trust, because it meant that you did the hard thing that a lot of people, number one, wouldn't do, couldn't do, or wouldn't want to do, but you did it because you trusted yourself. So you can find in any situation two sides or two stories. One, the one where you didn't hold the vision for yourself, and two, the one where you did hold the vision for yourself and seeing that new reality. So even to look back on the last 3 to 6 months, what were times where you didn't really trust yourself, and how could you reframe and look at those from a different angle to find how you did in fact trust yourself in that moment? What did you do? What was the thing that you thought of, the thing you executed, the decision that you made that truly actually was evidence that you can rely on you? Most entrepreneurs, the reason I wanted to talk about today is that strategy is an important part of scaling. But if you have a strategy and you don't trust yourself to hold it, if you want success and you don't trust yourself to hold it, if you want results and you don't trust yourself to hold it, if you want a team, if you want more money, if you want a bigger brand and you don't trust yourself to hold it, you are going to self-sabotage yourself the entire way along. And the worst part is most people don't even know it's happening. They go, ugh, the market, ugh, the strategy, this thing, that thing. And I want to invite this conversation for you today and this reflection, because it can be really easy to say it's the strategy. And I have these moments myself, as I said, that I have to be really honest with myself. I'm like, Kate, the issue is not the freaking workouts. It's that you don't trust yourself to really be this person. You're resistant to what this is going to require of you. You're just scared. I had to have this really real and honest conversation with myself. And I want to invite you to do the same today. Because if you're someone who wants to scale rapidly in your business, I can give you a million strategies. But if you don't trust yourself to be the leader, to be the brand, to show up in the way that you need to make the decisions, to have the hard conversation, to put in the work when there's no evidence to say that it's going well, to do the tough stuff, if you don't trust yourself, it's not going to work anyway. And every day that you point the strategy's the problem, strategy's the problem, strategy's the problem, is a day that you are ignoring the possible culprit that you are actually the common denominator. And this is not about blame. It's actually about opportunity. It's about you recognizing that if you don't have the results that you want in your life or in your business, that you actually, by having this real hard conversation today, have the ability to completely change the outcome and the pathway that you're going to go down in the next 3 to 6 months. So, what would your life, what would your business, what would your health, what would your relationship look like if you trusted yourself? I'm going to leave that with you today. So, thank you for spending today with me. As always, if there is something or anything that landed for you today, any questions that you have, anything that I can support you with, or even if you just want to be kind of witness in something that landed for you today, always feel free to reach out to me. My DMs are always open. I love chatting with you. And with that being said, we will see you on the next episode. And as always, stay ambitious.